Hello and welcome to Extraordinary Woman in Tech talk show. I'm Ulyana Zilbermints and I'm a CRO at AvenueCode and the curator of Extraordinary Woman in Tech platform. I truly believe that strong women aren't simply born like that. They are made through struggles and overcame so many obstacles to discover their confident voices. We have a very special lineup today of speakers for International Women's Day. And we will talk about women upbringing, confidence, and real tips on how to become stronger and more powerful. For the audience, please send us your questions and we'll get to it at the end of the show. So it's time to introduce our speakers. Ladies, we call each other Chicas on Fire. We have a special chat, so there is a reason for that. When I met you, each one of you, I was blown away by your confidence, power, and feminine energy combined with fashion, beauty, and creativity. So I hope we will touch on all those topics today. You truly broke through fictitious limits that society and history created for us. So please introduce yourself and tell us about you and how did you manage to grow through uncomfortable. So I want to start with you, Daniella.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I am the VP of Technology Enablement over at Thomson Reuters for the Reuters News Division. And a little bit about my journey. So I'm the first person in my family. Well, since then we have had others, but I was the first person to graduate high school and go to college and pursue a career because I desperately wanted a career in business. When I was younger, I thought that, you were really important if you spent your day in meetings all of the time. So that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be somebody who spent their day in meetings. And here I am. So I had to work through college. I paid my way through and I had to work, and I started in a information services company, and I was fortunate to be able to work cross industry because we were a contracting staffing agency kind of a company. I was exposed to a lot of different industries, and within industries, there is such varied culture of the type of people that you have and the expectations that are put of you, right? So pharmaceutical, manufacturing, banking, finance. So each one of those companies and those industries that I was exposed to had a different flair for what their expectations were for women and, just humans in general, right? Whether you were a woman or a man, you were expected to be a certain way. Way back then, I was groomed. I'm going to use the word groomed. I was groomed. I worked for it was a Big 8 at the time, consulting house, and they literally put you through a 3-week intensive training. And I was groomed to wear black suits and pantsuits and really fit in, kind of just like fly under the radar, fit in with the rest of the managing demographic. And it was never very comfortable for me because I'm Latin, so I embrace the beauty of women and makeup and style and really just celebrating everything that you are as a human. And so for me, being put into those boxes was a little bit difficult, and so I would always try to fit in those boxes, but find a flair of color or accessories, whatever it was that could make me be me, right? Find my voice in that. And as time has gone on and other women have come up through STEM, let's say, right? Because I ended up kind of following a STEM path through that. I have seen the shift. The shift is happening. It is not happening at every level. But I think that as women start to come into positions of seniority, right? We should really work to encourage individuality and encourage people to be their authentic self. Because I feel like when you're your authentic self on the outside, you're also your authentic self from the inside projecting, right? So if you're not a girl that likes to wear dresses, then don't wear the dresses. If you're a girl that likes to wear dresses, wear the dresses, kind of a thing. And really, you have to know your demographics. So I say that a little carefully. I don't want people to, go off crazy like, but you really have to know your demographic, and you have to understand and be respectful of the culture, but also be respectful of yourself in that space. And I think that once you start embarking down that path, you will find that you start to flourish in your area of expertise, right? So I came from pantsuits and kind of fly under the radar to being able to be my authentic self completely. And through that, I've been able to develop. So it's really, from a historical perspective, women used to be seamstresses. And as we, seamstresses and secretaries and hairdressers, right? Way back when, that's what you did. And now we're not anymore. And so I'd encourage all of you to find out, really dig deep and find out who you are, and be true to yourself, and bring that to whatever industry it is that you are working in and participating in as well.
Thank you, Daniella. I haven't met you when you were in a black suit, but I can see today that you truly came out through to be yourself. So thank you for that. That's awesome. And let's go to Cassandra.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cassandra Louie. I have the immaculate benefit right now of working for an incredibly inspiring institution of higher education here in New York City. But it was quite a path to get here. And just like Daniella, I started out in the universe of banking, right? Banks to banks, very kind of traditional, long legacies of navy pinstripe suits. And I went into the box too, because it was just naturally defined as if you wanted to be successful, there was a path, there was one path, and you're going to get on it. And so I did that, and I got into the box, and I put on the suit. And as you become more successful in your personal journey and your professional journey, you grow into a leadership position, and you listen and hear and you see what leadership looks like. And sometimes it doesn't always align with how you are kind of intrinsically wired. And so for so long we hear, you should fight against it. And I said, oh, this is not a fight. I'm going to win. There are generations and generations and legacies. And so maybe we don't fight it. And maybe we figure out how we redefine it and let other people choose. Do they want to follow this kind of legacy leadership, or do they want to be part of this new movement, right? Something newer, fresher, modernized. And so I found my voice as I developed. And I was in banking, and I worked for the Postal Service, and I rose through the ranks at the Postal Service. And here I am at the dais, right? And everyone else around me was, a middle-aged male born as a male. And here I am, this kind of short, sprightly minority female. And I had to figure out, how was I going to represent myself as myself, but still let people know that I was an authority. I knew some stuff. I could inspire you to act. And so it was about redefining what leadership looked like. And I was fortunate enough to get a following, right? Loyalty runs deep when you find a leader that inspires you. And so I would challenge everyone out there, as you are on your journey, find your voice too. And maybe we don't fight it. We don't fight the legacy. We don't fight the history. We embrace it. And we figure out, how will we embark to add the next chapter? How will we embark to redefine it? What are you going to be part of that? And how are you going to be the author of the next chapter?
That's amazing, Cassandra. Thank you. It feels like you brought the inspiration, but you also decided to put the flair of you there and follow along, and everybody saw that bright star that is different without fighting it, which is amazing. Thank you. And to you, Carrie.
Oh my gosh, following after these two fantastic women. This is great. So my name is Carrie Joel and I'm VP of Product at a stealth startup. But my roots are far from that. Much like Cassandra, I have a lot of banking background and large organizations. So I can really relate when Daniella talks about that being groomed into, who you need to be in order to be successful. And I think my journey was very traditional. I did the university computer science and I graduated, and I got that first job, and I was, and I looked around and I said, okay, here's the image of who I wanted to be. And that image were, in my case, white men in banks that made a lot of money. And I spent a lot of my career chasing that. And when I say that, I mean by the look, right? So I would wear the suit and I would tie back my hair and I would talk in a way that I felt was masculine and in control. And you know what? It just wasn't me. And even though I rose up in my career, I felt disassociated from that success, because that success, it wasn't about me. What I'm about, I grew up with a lot of love in a house. I love my friends. I like to go out. I like people. And I remember sitting in, and this is years ago, I was in a session and they were talking about, how do you manage conflict? And they had rules on how you manage conflict. And they said, the number one rule is you need to care about the person you're speaking to. And I was like, oh my goodness, we're telling people that the first thing you should do in a relationship is care? Like that was just, and then I realized how different I was. And I think for me, it was that moment. And then I said, okay, it's what I'm wearing is a uniform. I may as well be at McDonald's in a McDonald's uniform, because that is how I see myself. And then I started to say, well, what does that mean? And I remember the first day I walked into a meeting and I had my hair done the way I would wear it when I went out, curly and long and all over the place and feminine. And it was a really scary moment for me. And there was a colleague, a male colleague, a white male colleague who wore the suit. And he said, you look very nice. And that acknowledgement gave me that little bit of courage. And then little by little, it wasn't just about my fashion and my style and my hair, but how I talk to people. And, even in a leadership position, I'm going to sit down next to you and ask you how you doing, right? I'm going to sit down and ask you, what are the problem you're working on? And I think for me, that as I've started to be more comfortable with my style, with my outfits, I'm also finding wonderful things that I love to do, which is writing. And, I finished my first book and I'm like, wow, I have the confidence now to write a book. Doesn't matter if it's successful or not. No, it's my voice, it's my story, and I have the confidence to bring it out there. And so I think that when we talk about fashion and, how do we bring ourselves, it's our whole self, right? So maybe you're creative, maybe you're spiritual, maybe it's music and it's that jam that you love. But I think that once we discover that part of us that we can bring out, people gravitate to us. And it's fulfilling for us, and it gives other people the courage to be who they are. And the only thing more amazing than being comfortable with your authentic self is helping other people to be comfortable with theirs. And so, my journey now is continuing. It's not, at my stage of my career, I want to learn more. I want to develop more myself and surround myself with, like this panel. Amazing people who bring out the best in me. And I hope to do that for other people.
That's amazing, Carrie. I'm hearing vulnerability, but also divine feminine upbringing and authenticity. And from all of you, I feel like there's something personal that you really bring with you everywhere you go, work, home, balance, friends. And it's so nice to see. And I had a quick question. I know we're coming to the next phase of confidence, but in one sentence, what is your personal signature in your style? One thing, for me, it's earrings, and it's bright earrings, an accessory for me. I always have it. I always feel that I want to bring it anywhere I go, and it makes me unique. So what about you, Cassandra? Start with you.
I would love to say eyelashes, but mine are fake. So I'm going to wear it. I'm going to wear it out there. So that's one that I wish that I could. But I finally figured out the power of investing in the right red lipstick. If you have nothing else happening in your face, it brings you to life, and you have to live up to it, right? Because you spent 3 hours in Sephora trying to find that thing. And once you finally do, that's you. So no matter what, you put it on. And to Daniella's point, you are ready. You're ready to bring it. You found you. And all you have to do is show up.
You're ready with the lipstick. I love it. Awesome. What about you, Daniella?
By two, in case they discontinue it. So, I mean, I guess for me, the obvious is my hair, right? So, as you see, it's gray. I stopped dyeing my hair a few years ago, and I have mixed reviews on it, but I love it. Both of my parents have beautiful, beautiful salt and pepper hair. And I started going gray when I was 15. So I had a big white patch, and I started dyeing my hair, and I dyed my hair all the way until about, I guess maybe 4 years ago now, where I just was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I've had all kinds of different, I look at it and say, it's just hair, right? I've had it super short. I've had it long. It's been blonde. It's been red. It's been black. It always changes my look. I also change my glasses a lot. So I have black glasses, I have blue glasses, I have red glasses. It changes my face. And sometimes I wear my contacts. Sometimes I wear my hair curly. It gives a whole different appearance, right? So I am a big proponent for being super brave and changing your hair, because it always grows back, right? I'm not brave enough to ever go a pink or a purple, but it's really I embrace it, and it is who I am, and I embrace it, and so that's.
We all love your hair. We always comment on it. Thank you. And Carrie, what about you?
I think for me, it's a bit about having a swagger, right? And so whether it's a pair of heels that when I walk, I just feel like I'm owning it, or a long sweater that's sort of, flowing, a wrap. It's sort of depending a bit on my mood. I live up in Toronto, Canada, so it's a little chilly here a lot of the year. So, fashion is definitely about, what is outside and what's really reasonable. But I think for me, it's maybe not one thing, but making sure that when I am getting dressed, and whether I'm going to the hockey rink to support my kids, or if I'm going out, that I feel that I can kind of have that walk, and that I'm walking in a room, and that I'm here and I'm confident in how I walk in. And it changes, but then I'm a Gemini, so I'm always changing.
Swagger, hair, lashes, lips. I love it. Thank you, ladies. And now we want to talk about confidence. It's an important subject of maybe from each one of you. How did you reach a point of power, and what are the pillars of confidence? And Daniella, if we can start with you.
Sure. So I'm a big believer in owning your space, right? So you as a human have the right to have your space. And in every interaction that you have, it's really important to have respect for yourself and the why. The why are you there? What value do you bring? Have respect for others. I think that and Carrie said this before, right? We have lost connection to so many people. And I think that confidence really comes from within, where I'm really, really great at certain things, and certain other things I am really bad at, right? And so I will find somebody to compliment, you know, and add value where I can't add any value. But when you're really real and raw with yourself, and you own your space, and you realize that you have earned the reason to be there, and you know, a lot of it's body language, stand up straight, shoulders back, you know, a lot of that perception that you put off is important. And as you know, and Carrie was just saying about the swagger, right? It is important. You know, you want the lashes, do the lashes. You want the red lips, do the red lips. You need the heels, do the heels, right? Embrace yourself, and know all of the value that you bring to the table. Know where you need help, and find people that will compliment you and build those relationships, whether it be at work or with friends or at home. I think that everybody brings something to the table. Figure out what that is and own that, right? Really own your space. That's my confidence spiel for you.
Thank you. Love it. Love it. Cassandra, what about you?
So in my current role, I'm a project manager at NYU, and there is this kind of unique behavior in project management because we don't really have a solid line relationship with anyone. We are trying to artfully weave together the behaviors of lots of people, for maybe we have a dotted line relationship, if any kind of line relationship at all. So the strength in the ability to understand who is at the table with me, right? And building that bridge to make a connection to them, capture our affinity that might be aligned in some way. And today I had a wonderful conversation with someone that introduced me to the concept of threads. And they were all connected by threads, right? And if you think about threads, it's being put together by something, becoming interwoven, right? How do we make a connection? Maybe it's connecting with someone that shares the same strength as you, but to Daniella's point, be confident enough to know, I'm not really so great at this thing right here, but you know who is? This other person at the table. And building a spot for them to join the conversation is probably one of the greatest things that elevates your own confidence. You already know what you're bringing to the table, so much so that you can scoot over at the podium and share it with someone else. And I think that that's one of the greatest kind of things that we practice, right? It's you practice it. Do you ever get it perfect? Probably not. So you just have to be committed to practicing it. And for me, that's kind of the ultimate spot of confidence, when you know that it is time to scoot over and allow someone to join you, invite someone to join you. And sometimes you even have to like nudge them hard to join you at the podium.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cass. It's echoing the confidence when sharing, and also feeling the complementary skills, really upbringing your personality and others as well. That's great. Carrie, I know that you've been in banking and CIO at the bank and VP level roles. How do you balance your confidence? How do you come across confident but not bossy, or another B word that usually come across in that scenario?
Yeah. And yeah, no. And I think that's always what it is. Right. And in my younger, earlier on in my career, I think the number one, issue that people had was, I heard all the usual, right? Aggressive, emotional, because I care and I bring, my energy. And I think that, you start really thinking about what you're doing and saying. I think that a lot of times we react. A lot of stuff's going on. We live in a busy world. We're looking at our phones. There's a whole bunch of things going on. And I think the first thing you got to do is stop and make a self-assessment, right? So, okay. And then be honest in the moment, right? So look, there's times when, I'm not asking, I'm telling. And let me be clear that I'm in a leadership role. At the end of the day, I'm accountable for this, and this is my call. And I'm going to stand behind that. I'm going to stand behind you. But, this is at the end of the day, I've listened, I've heard, and this is what we're doing. I think the problem with that is it does come across as bossy. And so I think it's the power of the why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you making that decision? What data has come into that? And the really beauty of starting with why is it opens the conversation for psychological safety, which is at the core of, I think, healthy interaction. And what that talks about is, let me open up this dialogue. It's an invitation. I'm going to talk about why I'm doing something. And then you're going to tell me, maybe I've missed the mark. Maybe why I'm doing something is actually that's not the problem we're trying to solve. And so I think that, it is a fine line. And I think that, at a certain point in your career, you're given an accountability, and you can't be afraid of taking that accountability. But I think the way in which you take that accountability, if you start with the why and then with the what, I think that it helps people understand where you're coming from. And I think that the other thing that is always a balance is, listening and caring. Like, you're interacting with someone, maybe you're interacting on behalf of an entire organization, or maybe just yourself. When you start with, I really care about this group of people and I want the best for them. Let me explain to you why I think what I'm doing is going to give that, right? It's a whole different conversation than do this, and I'm just going to sit back and kind of tell you what to do. So I think, just in summary, it's really two things. It's starting with the why and making sure that there's authentic interest and caring in what you're doing, because I think that translates into a clearer message, and one that has empathy in it, which is always easier to digest.
That's beautiful, Carrie. I think Carrie is bringing caring self to the world. That's wonderful. Before we go to the tips for confidence, I have a tricky question for you. Do you feel that can actually men handle and be with a strong and powerful woman? And from your personal experience, and does that exist, and how does it look like? Who wants to take that question?
I can take it. So I would say that I think men can be made to be comfortable with strong-minded, powerful delivery, as long as you can talk the talk and walk the walk, and you are walking beside them, right? Rather than trying to trample on them. I think that if you develop some healthy relationships, I've worked in a man's world for a really long time, and I have some really great allies. I will tell you that I find the women harder.
Yeah.
Right. I find the women harder. I think that men will give you your platform to prove yourself, and they might put you through the ringer a little bit. But once you prove yourself, you're there. With women, I feel there is such a competition that happens. And I see this all the time, and really we should not leave anybody behind, right? We should form allies with the men, but I mean, this is my give back, right? I have tons of mentees and relationships that I build, and, chats that I have with my girlfriends, and anywhere where I can bring somebody along and make an introduction like Cass says, or, build those relationships like Harry was just talking about. I think that's what's really important, right? I'm not so much, I have not experienced, for the amount of time that I have spent in a man's world, and it has been a very long time. I will tell you that the most toxic toxics of the relationships was not so much the men, but the women. Now, the men issue is really around when you're trying to sell an idea and get funding and things like that, right? You may have to go through extra hoops or whatever it is. But from a relationship perspective, that's my take. And I don't know if Carrie, you.
What about personal life? I know that you took it to a relationship at work, which is important, but the personal life.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe I can take that one. I mean, I think that, you know, with anything, your relationships are an individual story, right? And so you can't, you know, I can't say, can you for everybody? No, but I do think that you can create, and whether it's, you know, a relationship with a man or a woman, whatever your is your preference. But I think that it's about having that stability. And you can get that stability in a lot of different ways, but it is a tough world. It's tough in so many ways. And if you don't have that person that is there, that you know loves and supports you no matter what, it's a tough world. And I think that one thing that we don't always do is we don't set up our partners for success in supporting us, because we're embarrassed to say what our needs are. And I think the core to having somebody that can support you, you gotta tell them what you need. I mean, they can guess, but I'm pretty sure that they're only going to get it right somewhat at the time. So I think that, you know, we have to take the ownership on ourselves to create those healthy relationships. And I cannot like second what Daniella said enough, that I think our biggest issues aren't intergender. I think that they're really about us supporting each other. And you don't have to be senior. It's not like you have to run the bank to support a woman. Do never underestimate the power of your support for your boss, for somebody else's boss, but just to be like, hey, I think what that person's doing is great. Like, support is incredibly easy to give, and it's incredibly meaningful to receive. And I think we just sometimes forget that. And so, yeah, I think telling people what you need, great place to start. And then offering that support in every way you can, even in the small interactions, means the world to everybody, because someone might be having a bad day and you gave them that little thing that they really needed.
For sure, Carrie. Thank you. We have a question from the audience, and I would like to mix it if you don't mind. Question is, have you had previous women leaders? And if so, have they influenced your leadership style today?
So I can start with that one. I have been blessed with both women leaders, right? And to some of the points made earlier, it's that formal structure of a person who is ahead of you, perhaps. But I've also had some incredible peers who have inspired me, right? Maybe it is the way they presented themselves. Maybe it is the way they owned a space. Maybe it's the way that they wore an outfit, but they inspired me to think, and more importantly, to act. And that was one of the things that I agree with Daniella, that I think I've had much more support from male counterparts, peers, and colleagues. And again, kind of once you've proven yourself, you've made it. Where some of the women that I've come across put me in a position that I'm constantly being challenged. But now let's turn that on its head. Challenge doesn't always mean that I should take it as you're threatened. It should mean you're pushing me to be more. You're pushing me beyond what I feel comfortable doing, right? Be comfortable in the discomfort. Push yourself a little more. Be a little bit more mindful. Approach it in a little bit more of a holistic way. And that's what a lot of the women around me have challenged me to do. When we seek to solve a business problem, think about, where does your solution set lie as it impacts others? And that is one of the greatest gifts that female peers have given me. Like that moment to say, well, slow your roll and let's figure out where your solution is going to kind of rub up against someone else. So one of the greatest points of inspiration, more holistic.
That's very nice. Wonderful. Anyone else on that? Lady, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with that. Like, it's funny when been asked this question quite a few times. I kind of feel like I need a better answer. But in some ways, like it isn't just one person that inspires you. And I think that's what the journey is about. And that's what experience is really about. It's about those different people, yourself, that have challenged you. And yeah, I mean, I've had great leaders, but probably the person who taught me the most and supported me most happened to be a man. And I still see him, quite often. And we have dinner and it's great. And so I think it's, I hope to be that woman for other people. But it wasn't something in my life, no.
No, that's great to know that we are now becoming those leaders and we're taking that ownership, right, Carrie? So I've seen you on stage and thank you for giving back to all the women and being the spokesperson for it. Another questions from the audience. What are the typical qualities do you see women display that are advantageous to being a great leader?
So I can take that one. I think that being empathetic and listening, right? I use the word empathetic and I have often been accused of not having much empathy, which is really not true. I do have a lot of empathy. What I don't allow to happen is for us to wallow in the empathy, right? So my one-to-ones as a leader are more about how are you doing as a human? What's happening in your space? How can I help you? How can I help you succeed? My team doesn't work for me. I work for them. I approach the same way in my relationships, right? In my friendships, and it's really just authentically who I am. I think that as myself as a woman, we have this "I am woman, hear me roar" thing, right? And we also have this nurturing, motherly kind of aspect. And it's really about finding the balance between the two, and take the 5 minutes and have your meltdown, and that's okay because you've earned it. But now let's focus and move forward. And how do we fix this? And how do we evolve? I think that sometimes if you stay too much into that space, what happens is all of those negatives, which aren't necessarily negatives, take the negatives, right? Yes, I've had women leaders, I've had men leaders, I've had great leaders, I've had horrible leaders. I will tell you, I've learned the most from the most horrible leaders that I've ever had, right? I've learned what not to do. I've learned what is not effective. So I'm a big proponent in it, tapping into everything that we naturally as women tend to have, that nurturing and understanding, and honing in on that, and really just kind of using that to navigate along, right? And embracing the other human you're dealing with, not just a person, right?
I mean, the one thing I would add to that, I love that, right? It's bringing who we are is problem solving.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, in leadership roles, a lot of what you do is problem solving. And I think everybody problem solves differently. And so I think understanding what your process is, understanding how to be most effective with your process, and practicing that problem solving does help in leadership. There's a million other qualities, but I actually think problem solving is one that people don't talk about. Like, you often hear people say team, bringing the most out of other people, right? Like, that's a big thing in leadership, right? Like, you've got a team of people, how can I bring each of their superpowers together so I've got a super team? But I actually think at the end of the day, problem solving is like, it's up there as something you need to be able to do.
Absolutely. Cass, anything from you?
So I think one of the things that resonates the most with me across this whole concept is, where do we go from here, right? Like, we've all heard these amazing anecdotes and experiences and reflections. And as much as the three of us are chatting along, right, trying to move this dialogue along to our listeners, I think we're all taking something wonderful from what we're hearing from each other. And so I think the greatest thing that we do both as team leaders, but more significantly as team members, is what's the new thing that we took away from this engagement, this conversation, this challenge, this success, this failure, right? Like, where did we see the lesson learned? Where did we see the not to do, right? Because it's easy to look at someone who did it awesome and say, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that right there. But it's more challenging to be the party, the victim of something that was not done quite right. And to say to yourself, to that point, I'm not going to wallow in being upset about it. I'm going to empower myself to be better for it. And so that to me is something that I heard here, that you said to me, but you didn't actually yet say to me.
That's awesome. Listening and learning and really standing up from failing and going again and going again. I feel it's so important. And if you think about your younger self, we have a question from the audience, like just let's go back to the past and remember us all young and I don't know the other word, but probably vulnerable and inconfident yet. But what piece of advice would you give to yourself that will help your career journey as a female? And what would be that one advice from you to yourself?
I mean, I can start. I think the number one thing is, really think it through. I think that I made some decisions about the next role, the next job, and they seem, it was like, sometimes you really got to think it through. What is it that I'm about? What is it that I bring? And what am I going to bring to this role? And what is this role going to bring to me? I think sometimes I didn't do the analysis of that. And, I think that would be something I would say.
Got it.
And
Thank
so I think for me, if I could jump in here, because I think the next thing that we've all learned is that we've come across formal and informal mentors, coaches, and those that inspire us. And drink that in. Do not be afraid to say either, I don't know how to do something that I just saw you do really well, or I'm really not quite sure how to endeavor to solve this XYZ. Can you help me? Or even just to say, this is my situation. What are your thoughts about that? And to open yourself up to being mentored, coached, or inspired by whomever, right? Because inspiration comes in lots of different ways and coaching comes in lots of different ways. And once you've made that connection, your mentors are your mentors for everything you will endeavor to solve in your life or engage in or challenge yourself. So if I could give my 22-year-old self some advice, I would certainly say, catch your inspiration and coach and mentor wherever you can.
That's great, Cass. How do you find the mentors now when you're already a powerful leader and you always out there leading? Is there advice? How do you find leaders and coaches? Is it through the industry or what? I don't know how to find them. Just listen.
If that's to me, I mean, I know for a fact that the two ladies here too are tremendous mentors and coaches, right? The mentor and the coach is to your left or to your right. It is just about anyone. I mean, Daniella, what are your thoughts about that? Because I know we've had some very spirited dialogues about this.
So if I had to go back and tell my younger self some advice, I would actually take both of your advices. Those are my two biggest lessons learned as I've come through, right? Really being real and raw and true to myself. We as humans are taught, oh, don't be selfish, don't be selfish. It's not really selfish, it's self-full. Really, it's about reflecting on who you are as a human and what you need and what you drive. And what's going to propel you forward, right? And that goes from how you look on the outside to how you carry yourself to how you speak, who you engage with. And the other piece is networking. I think that the thing that scares me the most about this digital age is that networking was a big thing when we were younger, right? It was about networking, and there weren't a lot of avenues to network. And now there are a lot of avenues to network, but the networking skill is gone, right? Because people don't really know how to engage. So, Ulyana, to your point, I'll give you a tip, right? If you want to learn about something in some industry or whatever, go on LinkedIn, look for some people that are in that industry, go to some university, look for some professor that's in that industry, whatever it is, wherever you have to look, there's ways for you to find them. Drop them an email, introduce yourself, the reason that you want to talk to them, right? So I'm a student, I'm doing some research, I have these conversations right now with a lot of seniors in high school. I have a junior who's looking at colleges, and you know, and I mentor a lot of that kind of age group. And you know, go out and introduce yourself. I'm so-and-so, and I'm interested in a career in finance, and finance is so vast. I was wondering if you could give me 15-20 minutes of your time for your experiences, right? That there is so many, there are so many opportunities to network and reach out. And like Cass says, to your left and to your right, right? Wherever you are, pull your head out of your phone, talk to somebody on public transportation, in a bowling alley or a bar or wherever you happen to be, because you never know who you will encounter. So I would say that, you know, it's really about getting out of the phones and putting yourself in that vulnerable position and really putting yourself out there. And it's really, it's never too late to start with putting that foot forward. It takes guts. It takes courage. It takes grit. Not everybody's going to like it. Not everybody has to like it. You have to like you. You have to be proud of you. And that, at the end of the day, is what will drive your success, right?
That's amazing. Thank you, Daniella. You know, I remember on 3 years ago when I looked on my LinkedIn, and I could find only a handful of female leaders and executives around my network. And I started to be in action. And now every single conversation on my LinkedIn is a female leader from all over the world. You know, like this makes me feel that every person can do something impossible, even if you feel it's impossible, but you set intention, you feel that there is the beautiful ending where you see all these beautiful women around the globe. So I wanted to, and we'll continue, but there is a couple of questions about just making it a little lighter. If you want to be beautiful but comfortable at the same time, any tips on how to do that?
I can stand up. I don't know if you can see, but I am wearing.
There you go.
So you can be beautiful and be comfortable, and you should absolutely be comfortable, right? So, you know, sometimes you've got a pair of super high platform heels on and you bite the bullet because it looks good. And sometimes you trendy sneakers on or whatever it is. Beauty will project from inside of you. So it's not necessarily how expensive your clothes are or what outfit you have on. It's really about what you're comfortable with. I've seen plenty of people in beautiful dresses with cute little, you know, sneaker type or flat ballet type of shoes, whatever it is. And, you know, you could always change when you're going into the facility. You don't have to wear them all the time. So.
For sure. I love that tip. It's not about uncomfortable. It's about comfortable in where you feel beautiful. That's wonderful. Question for Carrie. I'm also female in aviation organization. What have you been your top of your 2 challenges as you have transitioned into this industry, and what have you done to overcome them?
So I'm very new in the role. So I think that the number one challenge for me was knowledge. I think anytime you try and go into a different industry, the learning curve is always steep. And I think it was Cass who said it, don't be afraid to ask for help. And so I've had to, and it's hard, right? When you've been in senior roles and stuff to be like, wow, I don't know that. And I need some help. So I think the two things is just, there's a lot of material out there to learn. People are incredibly generous in general, I think, with time and learning. So yeah, so I think it's learning and being okay with like, I don't know, and I need help. So I think those are the two things.
I struggled too, Carrie, when I jumped into, and I had a little stint in aviation myself, and in those kind of highly regulated industries, right? Banking, securities, aviation. The wonderful thing is that the rules are so clear, right? Like that's a plus. That's definitely a plus. But there's also lots of folks out there that you can ask, and they just love their comfort in subject matter expertise. So ask. Hey, how did you approach this challenge? And I think certainly aligning yourself with folks, just like we talked about before, that know different things than you, that are strong in places where you haven't yet built a strength, especially in aviation, right? I mean, there's just those nuances they're unique, like unicorns.
But that last question for everyone, and we'll wrap up. I know that it's almost at the end and everybody wants to celebrate Women's Day. Question, how do you balance home, family, work, and have time for everything? And I know you all have different backgrounds, but I just wanted to see from your perspectives.
Is not sleeping the right answer? I mean, I think the reality is I think most of us would say we don't balance it well. I think most women would say they don't see their friends enough. I'm at work, I feel guilty that I'm not with my kids. When I'm with my kids, I feel guilty I'm not at work or working. So I think that it's kind of BS if anyone says, oh, I've got the answer, because I don't think you do, but or maybe I certainly don't. But I think it's about trying. I think it's about being clear about what you can do and what you can't do, and don't spend the mental calories on what you can't do. I mean, if you can't go somewhere, you own it. Listen, I'd love to be there with you. I can't. Leave it at that. People understand. And don't say you can be somewhere when you can't, I think that's, yeah.
Thank you, Carrie. Anyone else?
So I am a single mother of 3 with 2 in middle school and 1 in high school. And I work a crazy international full-time job in the news industry, which means that, if you're a nanosecond late, it's old news. So it is high pressure. I will tell you one of my secrets to survival is recess. So my friends and I, we're all running around, running kids to games and soccer games and baseball, basketball, whatever it is. And you always have this chunk of time while they're at practice. And most of the time it's, closed door practice or whatever, because they don't want the parents putting their 2 cents in. So you have a chunk of time, an hour, hour and a half. So we take advantage of that, and we go meet somewhere and we have a coffee or a glass of wine or whatever is appropriate at that time of the day and place. And we see each other and we chat literally for 45 minutes or an hour, and then we're back to our lives. I have technology set up where my office is pretty much mobile. So I can start on a call and take it with me if I have to take somebody somewhere or pick somebody up. I think the beauty of COVID is that it's normalized the fact that not everybody has to be in the office, right? So that has helped, and the technology in that space evolving has helped. But nothing is ever balanced, because once you have it balanced, something else shifts and changes. So it's just about keeping all of the balls from hitting the ground, not necessarily bouncing at the same time.
I totally agree with that. Completely agree. And I think to the point where it's a big picture, right? Do we balance every single thing, every single day, every single minute? No. But in the big picture, what we kind of have to nip, tuck, steal, borrow, and shift today, we nip, tuck, shift, borrow, and steal the next day, right? It's all about a balance. And over the course of time, each of those individual groups, you know, your partner, your lover, your children, your friends, your job, will look at the big picture of where did you contribute? Where were you present? How are you engaged? Where is your value? How do you value me? And I think if we just stop looking at, did I do a good job Tuesday? Because you know what? Sometimes Tuesday just stunk. But did I do a good job in February? Yeah, you did an awesome job in February. So as we kind of look at it in the big picture, I think to Kerry's point, you just don't always feel like you did it right. But to Daniella's point, if you can take those moments and make them something, you did okay.
Awesome. You know, I think this is a perfect segue to acknowledge all of you. Thank you so much for joining, and you're truly chicas on fire that I'm so happy to get to know. And, you know, being authentic self, I've learned so much today, and living in the moment, stealing the time, and also forgiving yourself. You know, Cass, what you said is like, you can be a judge for yourself, but if you forgive yourself, then there is a light for yourself as well. So thank you for joining, and I hope to see you soon, girls, and I'll see you in New York. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, everyone. Happy Women's Day.
Bye.